Hi you guys, this is Jamie with Whatever's Clever Boutique, and today we are going to make a Leopard Swirl tumbler using all of the glitters from the May Peachy palette. I was obsessed with this palette. I knew I wanted to use all of them together, and I just love the way this tumbler turned out. I will have everything that I use listed and linked in the description box below, as well as some coupon codes. So let's go ahead and get started. We're starting today with a 32-ounce travel mug from the Tipsy Magnolia, and I've spray painted a swirl here with white, pink, and blue, kind of in the way that I want the swirl to be on the tumbler. Then we're going to go ahead and use all of the glitters from the May Peachy palette. We have Fat, we have Talk to the Hand, TTYL, and Booyah. All of these are seriously so gorgeous. So the only one that is not a chunky or mini chunky mix is the purple fat glitter. So we're gonna use that one for our leopard spots. That's why our swirl here that I have painted on the tumbler does not show purple, because we are gonna use that a little bit later in the tutorial. So I'm going to go ahead and go in with my UV resin for the epoxy method today, and I'm just going to put a thin coat of that all over the tumbler. Now we're going to go ahead and start laying that foundation for our swirl. So as you can see here, I'm not going to go super heavy on the coverage with the glitters. I'm just going to take them and put them central in the location of where I'm going to want that glitter to go, if that kind of makes sense. And I'm not going to blend too far out. And I'm going to go ahead and do this with all three of my chunky and mini chunky mixes. Now that we have all of those glitters on the tumbler, laying our foundation for where all the glitters are going to go, we're going to go back through with all three of those glitters again and really start building that blend for the ombre of our swirl. Now that we have those colors blended really well, we're going to go find some pairs to go with our chunkies. So I have Luxe for the Booyah, I have Bejeweled for TTYL, and Neon Barbie for Talk to the Hand. So we're just going to go ahead and take those, and we're going to start really amplifying the blend even more with these fine cut glitters. How perfectly do these colors blend together? I was so excited at this point in the tumbler step. And I will say I was so excited that I was so excited to get epoxy on it. But in hindsight, I should not have epoxied until after I applied my leopard spots. You want to apply the spots when your glitter is bare. That way you don't have to worry about the glitter sticking to the epoxy and getting that almost like static effect that you get when you apply glitter over top of epoxy. But I didn't, I just was going with the flow and so excited that I just epoxied the tumbler. And it looked great, but now to try and avoid that static that we get when applying our leopard spots, I'm gonna sand this tumbler super well. So I'm gonna go ahead and do my rim, get off all that excess epoxy. I'm gonna sand down that rim, and then I am really gonna sand the whole body of the tumbler. I can't stand sanding. I will say it is my least favorite part of the whole tumbler process. But in this case, to avoid getting all of the static and glitter stuck to the tumbler, I'm gonna sand the crud out of this. That way the glitter does not stick. As you can see here, you really can't see any of the shininess on the tumbler, and that's what I was going for here. So now we're gonna go ahead and spray down our tumbler with some rubbing alcohol and wipe that all off before we go into our leopard spot. Again, for our leopard spots, we're gonna use the fat glitter. It's purple with the adhesive apothecary glitter glue and some purple acrylic paint. I'm just gonna mix the two together, and that's what we're gonna use to apply the leopard spots. And again, we did all that excess work due to epoxying the tumbler prematurely. So if you're gonna recreate this, do the leopard spots after you cure your tumbler initially under the UV lamp. You want to apply it to raw glitter just to make it a little bit less of a headache. So for the leopard spots, these are hard for me because I'm a perfectionist and I want them to all be uniform and to be perfect, basically. But leopard spots are not perfect, and it's better if you have kind of a shaky hand, I guess, for doing this effect. You want to have kind of like that rough look, and you want each leopard spot to be a little bit different. No leopard spots are the same. So I sure tried my best here, but as you can tell, they end up looking pretty similar just because I just can't handle having them be different. So this is all up to your discretion. Put as many or as few leopard spots as you'd like, but I am applying mine to the Booyah portion of the swirl on both sides. Now, of course, we are going to do a glitter booty now that we have all of our leopard spots on, and I'm going to take this black UV resin from CC DIY, and I'm just going to fill that outer ring with that UV resin. And then I'm going to take my fat glitter and mix that with just some plain UV resin and put that right in that center cavity. Once you get that all in the center cavity, don't forget to run over it with your lighter to pop any of those air bubbles. Then we're going to go ahead and let that cure for about 2 minutes. While that's curing, I'm going to prep my outer little ring here for Mizzy Doodles, and this is a care tag basically. But the purpose of putting that black UV resin in that outer ring was so that you could apply this tag to that outer ring without having to paint the back of the logo tag. But I already had some painted, so it didn't make too much of a difference for me, but I wanted to show you that. You could put that UV resin on that outside and save the step of having to paint the back side there. And I paint a bunch at the same time, that way they're all dry and ready to go for me whenever I'm going to do booties. But you can do that step or skip it, totally up to you. I just feel like it helps make the logo tags stand out a bit more. Once those logo tags are on, we're going to go ahead and cure it again for another 60 seconds. And then we're going to fill that center cavity with some plain UV resin to just keep it all intact. Once our glitter booty is all cured, I'm going to go through with a little paintbrush after I tap off my tumbler pretty aggressively. We want to be sure all of that excess glitter's off. But with my little paintbrush, I'm going to go through and brush off any excess before I go in with my Rust-Oleum triple thick to seal in all of those leopard spots. Now it's time for our swirl portion of the tumbler. I'm going to take my purple mica with my white epoxy dye, as well as Booyah again, and we're just going to add that into our excess epoxy after we applied a thin coat to our tumbler. To apply these, I'm going to go ahead and just take my popsicle stick and I'm just going to run some of that pigment in the epoxy down the tumbler where I see fit. There's no rhyme or reason here in my mind as far as to where I put it. I just put it where I visually think it would look the best. So I started with the purple and then I went back in with the white, and after I got those applied to my liking, I took a gloved finger and just started pulling those epoxy strings to create kind of the brushed look rather than the stringy look. I don't personally prefer the just straight lines of epoxy. I want to kind of muddle it a little bit and make it look like it's being pulled through the tumbler. Once we get that all to our liking, I'm then going to go in with the Booyah and add the accents with the little bit of glitter in that epoxy to our swirl portion of the tumbler. I feel like this really adds a lot of depth and dimension into the design itself. Once our tumbler is all cured, I'm going to go in with a super simple decal. I saw this saying, made for more, and I really loved it, and I've been sitting on it for a while and just haven't known where to apply it. So I saw this tumbler and I was like, you know what, this is like actually perfect. So I went ahead and I cut it out twice, and I'm going to apply it to both of the swirl sections of the tumbler. So I'm going to apply it at an angle. You do want to be careful here because we do have that curve. So I apply the top portion and then I slowly apply that bottom portion as to not get any bubbles. I went in with my scissors and snipped that transfer tape so that it could lay flat and we could apply that decal seamlessly. So I went ahead and did that on both sides. For the vinyl, I used Tech Wrap Craft. I believe this was the purple opal. I'll link it in the description box below. I don't recall exactly what one it was, but I absolutely love this vinyl, and it laid perfectly, no air bubbles. It was just so perfect. And now that we have our decal applied to both sides, we're gonna go in with our final 2 coats of epoxy. Once that epoxy is cured, our tumbler is finished. I, again, saw these glitters from the May Peachy palette from Peachy Olive Glitters, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. The colors go so perfectly together, and it just came to life. I absolutely love how it turned out. I hope that you guys were able to gain some inspiration from this tutorial and grab these amazing glitters. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I appreciate all of your guys' support, so if you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, hit that bell button to be notified of future tutorials. And don't forget to check out my website. That is where I post all of the tumblers that I make for sale. I have quite a few that are marked down, trying to clear out some inventory. So if you want to snag some amazing tumblers at a great price, now is the time. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you again next week.